My friend, do I have an episode for you? I am so excited to share this conversation that I had with Dr. Jordin Wiggins. I know so many of you need to hear this conversation, are going to benefit from this conversation, and I really can't wait to share it with you. So before we jump in, let me just tell you a little bit about Dr. Jordin Wiggins. She is a naturopathic doctor, an author, coercive control clinician, and a pleasure strategist for women who have checked all the outward boxes of success in life, but feel unseen and disconnected in their relationships. Now you know why I invited her on this podcast. She exposes why desire and connection disappear in relationships where women overgive, and why no amount of therapy, communication, or willpower has worked. Through her Pleasure Path method, she guides women from survival-based intimacy into true receiving, because pleasure is not the reward for healing. It is the reset that makes real connection possible. I know you're going to love this conversation. Let's go. Welcome to the Power to Flourish podcast, where science meets the art of a beautiful life. I'm Dr. Andrea Line, positive psychologist, giftedness expert and coach, and modern-day spiritual godmother to brilliant, deep-feeling women. This isn't just another self-help podcast. It's a sanctuary, a sacred space to come back to yourself. Each week, we'll explore the emotional experience of gifted, sensitive women and what it means to live a life that feels as beautiful as it may look. Because flourishing isn't a luxury, it's your birthright. And your life is waiting. This is the Power to Flourish podcast. Hello, Dr. Jordin. I'm so glad that you could join me today. I'm really so excited about our conversation, and I already know if I'm not careful, we could go on and on from just talking with you right before this. So would you do me a huge favor and just share a little bit about yourself? I mean, I know you work with many women, and you have worked with so many women who, like my audience, they are very capable. They, from the outside, look like they've got it all together. And then the inside can be sort of a big mess. So can you share like what led you personally to this work? How did you get into this? You could talk about your book and how you got into writing that.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. We are going to chat forever. It's a mix of my personal and professional experience that sort of led me to what I do today. I'm a naturopathic doctor by training, and I sort of work at this intersection of women who they have it all, like everything except fulfillment. We've lived our lives ticking all those boxes, doing all the right things. Getting the degrees, the houses, the marriage, the kids, all we check the boxes. And then usually somewhere around perimenopause or maybe after kids, we start going, like, I thought this would feel different. I'm not as happy as I thought I would be, or I'm depressed. Yeah. I'm hanging on by a thread. Yeah. But the fascinating part, and I think this is similar for both of our clients, our audiences, is that it looks pretty darn good from the outside. Mm-hmm. We're taking the trips. We're smiling for the family Christmas photo, right? So it's looking very good on the outside, but we are drowning on the inside.
Yes, we know a very, very similar woman. Yes.
Yeah. So it was my personal experience and creating my first business, and I'd had these goals for myself. I wanted to create a women's health clinic and have a space for women to come and heal. Mm-hmm. And I created a community around that. And I had income goals, and I bought my dream car, and I bought a dream house, and I was miserable. My hair was falling out. Mm-hmm. I had adult acne. Mm-hmm. And also those milestones that I set for myself, I achieved by 30, miserable in my marriage.
Yeah.
And every angle of my life, I was the glue. I was the fixer. I was the, person that everyone went to and everyone relied on. And I just remember feeling like I have everything I said I've ever wanted. Why am I not happy? So then I just raised the bar and increased the goals. And I kept,
Yes.
yeah, exactly. The answer has to be more. It has to be
Right.
some external thing to fulfill me. And there was this weird feeling like I was kind of watching my life from a bird's eye view, and I couldn't really be present or happy. And the only things that fulfilled me was helping people, and it was all external, right? Like external validation. I was only worthy in relation to how much I gave and did for everyone else.
This
But
sounds so familiar. And not only to me, I'm sure many, many women are like nodding their heads right now as you share. Yes.
so that's when I started to look at the pleasure problem, and I wrote The Pink Canary, because not only was I going through this experience in my life, my patients were going through it as well. So all very high achieving women experiencing the same thing. Their health was falling apart. Their relationships were falling apart. Like usually they were on the brink of divorce or separation. So they were coming to me and saying, you know, I need something to fix my libido. What can we do? My husband's gonna leave, But it was this like very interesting time, and this was years ago. So like 2017, 2018, women's sexual health, women's hormone health. It's come a long way, which is amazing. But these were sort of even conversations that women were sort of like whispering to
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
with me. Like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't care if I ever have sex again. Or
Yeah.
my husband tries to touch me and I like recoil, you
Yeah.
know? So, and at that time, especially, they were generally, the advice that they were being given medically was, why don't you, go on a date night, have a glass of wine? Why don't you just relax? Why don't you take a vacation? Or, here's an antidepressant prescription or an
Yeah.
anti-anxiety, oh, you're doing too much. You have kids, all these responsibilities, work, right? So, but there's this inherent kind of blame on the high achieving woman, that it was her
Yes.
fault and she either wasn't measuring up or there was more that she needed to do to fix it, right?
Yes.
And I knew that that wasn't the full answer. So that's when I started having those conversations, just inviting groups of women to my clinic so we could sort of talk about what was happening. And because I'd done everything, their functional medicine testing, their
Right.
prescribed the hormones, like
Right.
from the cellular health level, things were dialed
Yeah.
on that aspect, but they're still saying, I'm not happy, I'm not fulfilled, and I have no libido. I don't care if I ever have
Mm.
sex
Mhm.
ever again. And the only reason they wanted to want it was because they were feeling pressured by their partner.
Yes. They didn't want their marriage to totally collapse.
Exactly. And then that's when I started writing The Pink Canary, which was really about the pleasure problem, like inability to feel pleasure and joy.
Mhm.
So that sort of started my second business, and kind of vein of what I do is helping women kind of reclaim and rebuild that whole aspect of themselves, because we're dealing with so much there, right?
Mm.
Sexual shame, like
Mm.
from society, for
Yeah.
lack of adequate sexual health education. So there's just so many odds stacked against us,
Yes.
I guess you could
Yeah.
say. But it's also this vital portion
Mm.
of our health and our well-being. So
Mm.
that's the pink canary. The canary in the coal
Mhm.
mine is our ability to feel pleasure and joy. And when
Yes.
we lose that, that's a warning sign of health problems to come,
Mhm.
relational distress or problems. And I
Yeah.
don't think people realize that feeling lonely in relationship is like smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Right. Right.
So we know that that's unhealthy. But
Yes.
this feeling of feeling lonely, feeling unfulfilled, even though we have research to prove that it is unhealthy for you,
Yes.
we're just tolerating it or we're just trying to get through.
Yeah, and it's so fascinating hearing you talk about your experience with women from your perspective as a naturopathic doctor and doing all the functional health tests. And I'm over here, working with women sort of through this from this other perspective, which by the way, I love all things functional medicine. So I love just hearing you like being able to do all that kind of testing. Cause normally I'm talking to women, I'm like, make sure you actually, see
Yeah,
someone.
we need both. We need
It's not all
all the tools.
psychological, right? It's all a holistic approach. But I love what you just said. Like, I'm imagining these women or a particular woman who is, like you said, she's built the life she thought she wanted and that she truly did want. And that maybe even there's a part of her is like, I do want this, but there's something about this that I'm like not enjoying and I'm not wanting. And she's, going to bed next to her husband and has kids and is probably has those friendships. So it doesn't appear like she's the kind of woman that would feel lonely. And I think that's what often,
Yes.
like, I love that you just like named it because I think sometimes when we talk about the loneliness epidemic, and for me, I have this background working with adolescents and young adults. I'm imagining, they're very disconnected and they're in their rooms by themselves, like playing video games or on their phones or whatever. We have that image of what loneliness can look like. But I do love that you're bringing to the forefront here are women very integrated into the just the tapestry of life, right? They're making the organizations run and they're making the households run and they're all the stuff and they're volunteering here and there. So they've
Yeah.
got people all around them. And yet they may not even realize how insidious this feeling of loneliness and disconnection is. And so I just wanted to highlight that for someone listening. It's like, it's not about you having people in your life or not. You can have tons of people in your life.
Yeah, surrounded by people
Yes.
and support and have, you know,
Yeah.
have cleaners and a nanny and have all of these things that, it's like, well, why should I feel this way? Like I've got people all around me. I have support, I have help,
Yeah.
but and they almost don't even know they're lonely or they don't
Right.
know to name it as lonely.
Yeah.
And to me, it's this lack of intimacy, this
Yes.
lack of truly being seen and truly being seen for who we really are.
Yes.
And when we have these kind of perfectionistic, high achieving tendencies, I like Sandra Brown's work on super traits, and I've kind of modified
Mm,
it for my
mm,
patient population, which is women that are hardworking, loyal, forgiving, tolerant.
yes.
So we have all of these traits
Yes.
that set us up to always give more than we receive. So when
I
I
wanna, like,
think of it,
raise my hand. I like, in the as a woman in recovery from that
yeah,
whole way of being. I totally identify, and that's why I'm so excited that you're here. I love thinking about it through the lens of, like, the super traits. Like, yes, there are so many of us, and we love giving. We just love it.
we
And there's
do.
not necessarily a problem with the giving. It's well, I want you to answer, like, what you think the problem is with that, but I
Y-
have an idea in my head, especially given what you're, you know, conceptually what your book is about. But yeah, why don't you say more about that and talk about that? You talk about sort of that just this quiet loss of aliveness in women's body, and it's just like how that is all related.
Yeah. So the super traits lead to the loss of aliveness.
Mhm.
And these super traits are survival mechanisms that we've developed as children
Mhm.
for how do I get love and stay safe.
Yeah.
And for lots of women, like with those gender roles, we can usually trace it back. We
Mhm.
can see that that was passed down mothers, grandmothers, like what a woman's role was, is it was
Mhm.
to caretake and make a man's life easier. And when we lived in very gender rolled societies, that made a lot of sense. But now things are very different. And I work with a lot of women. So usually both people are working outside of the home now, or a lot of times I have clients that they are the higher earner in the relationship, but they still do the majority of the household tasks and the emotional management and the invisible labor of all of it, right?
Yep.
So, but our gender roles and our expectations and things of relationships haven't caught up. So in the Pink Canary, and this is my the early work, and then I have what I've learned in the last 6 years, which is being written in the next book. Yeah. So the Pink Canary is about us and us healing us and our relationship to our sexuality and our aliveness and getting in touch with our desires. Because, when was the last time you danced in the kitchen and, had those full belly laughs like kids and just felt joy in your whole body, and because I look at pleasure in and out of the bedroom, right? So if we want to have great connected sex and orgasms, but you're not feeling joy and happiness and fulfillment outside of the bedroom, the pleasure centers in your brain are off, or they are turned way down. So it's one and the same.
Agreed.
And when we get to that point where we're just so anhedonic that we're not feeling pleasure and joy, we're disconnected from our desires, we're disconnected from our intuition, we're disconnected, in my opinion, from what makes us most powerful and magnetic and healthy as women.
Yes.
But I do feel like it was a little bit designed that way. So that's the Pink Canary is about, healing us. And then for the last 7-8 years, I've helped women do that, but then seeing the different barriers or things that they come up against when they have reconnected with that part of themselves. And a part of the problem is the system or the environment that we're in. And we are all so soaked in it. It's like we're swimming around in dirty water, but we don't know the water is dirty because that's our frame of reference.
And we're sick in the dirty water and we're like, what's wrong with us? What's wrong with us? And we don't even notice this water is filthy.
Right. And then we blame ourselves, and then we start counting macros, and then we start getting hormone replacement therapy, and then we do this and that and go to more therapy. But so helping women create pleasure-centered relationships and a pleasure-centered life, that's kind of part 2. But we initially, and this was a mistake in my earlier work, I thought we could do it by healing the individual, right? And that's also sort of how I was trained. You look at the patient in front of you, you look at their labs. Yes,
that's our Western society, right? Our Western, even in psychology, it's very individualistic in the approach. In terms of the intervention and conceptualizing, right? But it's let's pull back. Yeah.
So that was the lens that I wrote the Pink Canary through, and it's valid and it still works and it still helps thousands of women. But
bigger issue.
There's this next piece that we really need to hook it all up, and even concepts like just how centered relationships are around men, how centered our sex is around men, right? Most people, when I say sex, they think of penis and vagina. That's what sex is. But only 1/3 of women reliably orgasm from penetrative sex. So even just our concept of what we consider sex to be, right? Sex isn't a mutually beneficial encounter where both parties have as many or as few orgasms as they want, or even none. But sex isn't let's have this mutually pleasurable experience together. Sex is, we don't count it as sex unless there was penetration and my husband had an orgasm.
I see what you're saying.
And
Interesting.
then we have the
Changes the
orgasm
whole conversation.
gap,
Right.
which is in heterosexual relationships, men orgasm 97% of the time. And for women, it's only like mid 60s, 60 something, depending on what you read. But that's not the same for same sex relationships, right?
Hmm.
The gap in orgasms only exists in male female partnerships.
Interesting. As
So I talked about
one of many examples of what you're saying, like our world is just, we don't even think to question how it's set up and framed
right.
and defined even in sort of in relation to the man in the story.
Exactly. And I'll tell you how it goes when you talk to high achieving women and you bring to light all these points and they're like, oh, yeah, like that's
And then you get
right.
them all in a group talking.
I've been focused on his pleasure. And of course, I don't want sex that isn't fulfilling to me. But I can't tell him that I'm not enjoying the sex we're having. And I don't want to hurt his feelings. So then we default into this people pleaser mode. And then we think, oh, I've got to fix myself, right? Or pretzel myself,
Yes.
continue to center around the man.
Yes.
So there's many layers, many
Yes.
layers to all of this.
So, there's so many directions we can go in this. And I had mentioned before we started recording that I don't think yet on the podcast I've really gone very deeply into relationships for high achieving women, even though I have conversations with them behind closed doors all the time. But so coming from this and I mean, yes, sex is a huge, obviously, part of the pleasure parts of our life as women, but just everything around that, the emotional piece, the parts of aliveness, like you said, that pleasure, the joy, the being able to be fully in your body, whether you're laughing hysterically or even crying. Like I always say, I love for me to just I could just be so present in whatever it is that is going through my body. Like if it's joy and I want to sing at the top of my lungs, I will do it. And if I have to have a good cry, I'm like, we are here. We are grieving in this moment. But I know a lot of women struggle with that. So when we're talking about, I sort of want to get into, I'm trying to segue a little bit into one system, if you want to call it, and our many, many systems that are set up in ways that make it hard. And I'm happy to hear some of the stories or real life examples of women who, or maybe even in your own life, where the marriage or the long-term partnership gets not just oh, this is a little frustrating or a little, I'm not really enjoying it this much, but on the spectrum of things gets to a level where it's this is actually quite unhealthy. This system, this relational system, because we can talk about the even much larger system that is within, but in terms of the home, that relational system, can you just talk about that?
And this is bold. This is a bold take, but I have the clinical receipts and the research.
I would love for you to talk about
back
this.
it up, but I would venture to say that if women have super traits, and I have a free quiz that I can give you the link for the listeners to take it.
Right.
They are in an exploitive, it's a relationship that could go from exploitive to abusive. Okay. Now, and this, we don't like to say it. Abuse is a strong word. And we look at abuse as the violent incident model, right? We look at abuse as assault, rape, being hit or physical.
The common, the everyday person.
That's what they think abuse is.
And so when they say, oh no, it's not an abusive relationship in their mind or try to explain to someone else, they're thinking in these very concrete, situational or moments of abuse.
Exactly. But what we are missing is an understanding of coercion, an understanding of safety, like these basic principles, which I believe that all women and all men need to understand because it's part of the dirty water. It's part of just we're in these relational systems. And when we have super traits and we go for help, we go to couples counseling, we go to our own therapist, if they are not screening for coercive control or any of these tactics that are commonly used, then we take on too much of the blame and too much of the responsibility to fix it. Now, that being said, sometimes it's simple where we realize, oh my goodness, I have been overgiving. I'm giving way more than I'm getting in return. I don't feel safe and supported. I feel like if I was to let it all go, my partner's not picking up the slack. All wheels would fall off the bus,
I feel
right?
like that's what a lot of women say and believe.
Yeah.
And they really do believe, I can't let it go because it will all fall apart.
Right. And I used to have that belief. And then, but the thing is a lot of times they're right about it.
Yes. Yes.
Like that. And that's the scary part, right? And we don't want to let it go because we fear
yes.
not being met, or what, if I let it go, then what's gonna happen? So for example, and some of it is ours to let go. But one of my clients, her husband, like she's the primary breadwinner. They have 4 kids. She did all the emotional management in labor. She's the overfunctioner with super traits. He's an underfunctioner. He's doing the bare minimum, but he's mad at her for not wanting to have more sex. Okay. And it's always good when we talk about other people because it's easier for us to see it with somebody else than in our own situation.
Use all the examples you want.
So anyways, long story short, he was responsible for coordinating the son's travel back to school. And I can't remember if he'd missed booking. There was a connecting flight issue or something, but their son ended up stranded in an airport, their high school aged son. And we know that if she was handling it, it most likely wouldn't
may have been a different outcome. Obviously, not knowing the details of their,
but just knowing that she'd handled it for all the years and she passes it and it gets not handled appropriately. So there's those things where, okay, if I let it go, then the kids are going to suffer because he's not stepping up. But then it's also fascinating, right? When they know their fantasy football stats and they can plan gourmet meals for a boys' trip and stuff, right? So when it's like weaponized incompetence and it's just selective of how they're forgetting is very important. But we don't look at it like that. We look at it as, how am I failing? How can I do more? How can I fix this and make it work? So there's those things, but then there's also, when it comes to the relationship, I say women with super traits, it's like we've been holding this lump of coal and we've been putting the pressure in to turn it into a diamond, and we've been working at it, and we've been working at it for 10 years or 15 years or 20 years. And then when we let go, we realize he's not putting in the effort, right? He's not trying. And it was like, it's just us. So then that, like the weight of that reality, some women with super traits, we'd rather just keep working and keep trying because we don't have to deal with the hurt of, oh my goodness, I'm the only one holding this all together here.
It's too painful to stop.
It's too painful.
That reality, that is what
exactly. So we'd rather keep trying, hire a new therapist, count more macros, take more supplements, right? To work harder, hire a cleaning lady or something. But it's not fixing the root of the problem. And the root of the problem is that women with super traits are in an extractive relationship
Mhm.
or bordering to an abusive relationship.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
have been in an extremely abusive relationship.
Mhm.
So I say this with
Mhm.
literally zero judgment. And then the issue is like it looks so good on the outside. We present so well. We take so much over accountability for what's going on that when we go to get help, it
Mhm.
usually worsens the the harm. Like it creates more harm.
Yes. And that is a huge, I mean, I think it's so important to name that. And on a less sort of severe or serious level, when I'm working with women who are shifting in these smaller ways towards, just taking those steps towards like remembering themselves in their life, just this, I mean, it's all part of the same thing of just
Yeah,
remembering.
we get so lost.
Yes. So of like acknowledging them, but I will always say at the beginning of before we start a process, like just be aware. Like if you really do this work, like just know that I can't promise you that things are going to I mean, ultimately, I know it's a better path. Ultimately, absolutely, without a doubt, I know it's a better path. But getting to that other side when you've been in the dirty water or whatever analogy we want to use, things can get messier and
Before
harder.
they get
And in
better.
some scenarios, like seriously more like harmful. Like, I mean, in really severe situations, right? We need an escape plan. I mean, I'm not usually working with women in that situation today, but sometimes or some variation of that. And so I think for lots of reasons this work, even if a woman is listening, they're like, "Oh, I know I am this woman. I know I have these super traits. I took the checklist. I
Yeah.
see it in myself or whatever. And so like, but I want to be a woman who can get to the other side of whatever all the stuff that I've just been living on autopilot and but when it comes to these relationships and it's not just in marriage, it's like work relationships. I can see a lot of in my past relationship to work environments that were really,
Oh,
really,
and that's it.
really
It's never just our
really
primary, it's never
no,
just our
no,
romantic
no.
relationship.
It's
It's our
we are
corporate
we are
job or
right. We are
yes,
we are being who
in
we
our
are
parenting.
everywhere. Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, it's important for them to take those steps, but yeah, it can get harder at first.
definitely. And that's what I was when I said, sometimes it's an easier fix. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
these conversations like we have to have the difficult conversation to just say, like I'm kind of going through the motions with you for
Yeah.
sex. It's
Yeah.
not enjoyable for me. Can
Yeah.
we work at this together? And
Right.
then sometimes you get the babe, of course. I thought you liked this.
Right. Like,
Let's do
yeah,
this together, right? And then your work is done because you've
communicate.
had the hard conversation.
Yes.
I work with women to figure out like what do they even want sexually? They don't know. They've been
Yeah.
focused on his pleasure for
Yeah.
18 years. So
It is so
sometimes it is easy
yeah, I mean,
or easier.
it's so interesting hearing like the kind of work and conversations you have with women because it's such a parallel to other areas of their life. Like the woman who just doesn't know in her regular life what brings her joy. I can imagine the same is true in the bedroom. Like
It's
she hasn't
always a mirror.
she
When the
hasn't
pleasure centers are off,
she hasn't
they're off. She doesn't know what she looks at a menu and it's overwhelming because she doesn't know what meals to order. She doesn't know, she's on autopilot, but she's in her survival brain,
right.
right? We're putting out fires one step in front of the other. And she doesn't feel like she can rest and she doesn't feel like she can slow
Yeah.
down. And there's so much support around us. We need the right support,
Mhm.
right? We need therapists and people that understand we have super traits
Mhm.
and understand the damage that the overfunctioning can do. And a part of that's our side of the street. We have to work
Right.
on it
Right.
and also understand that it could potentially get scary,
Yep. Or at the very least, like some of the fears
uncomfortable.
some of the fears that you have may come true, right? Like that maybe
Yeah.
You delegate the plane ticket and it doesn't work out the way you
Yeah.
thought. Yeah, I mean, some of that is like some stuff is
And
gonna
sometimes it is. I do feel like women's bodies are so smart. And when we listen and we're so intuitive, and sometimes like she truly believes, like, I can't let this go because nobody will pick it up because no one will pick it up.
Right.
Sometimes they're so pleasantly surprised, right? Where they're, calling back or writing in our group chats, like, my goodness, he's stepping up in all these areas. And he almost said, like, I've been waiting years for you to let me help you, you know,
Yeah.
but I was just letting you sort of do your thing. But yeah, it's a lot, but I want people to know that it's not them. Like, they're
Mhm.
not inherently flawed and there's nothing wrong with them. We've been given the wrong scripts
Mhm.
and our survival patterns and strategies, some of which made us extremely successful and we get praised for, are the
Exactly.
exact same things that are getting in the way of us having pleasure and fulfillment in and out of the bedroom.
Yeah. So when you're working, and maybe we'll sort of wrap things up with like your approach and solution to this problem that so many of us can relate to, whether we relate our younger selves or currently still living this way. When you're working with them, and it sounds like you work with women in groups or also, I guess,
Groups or individually. Yeah, two ways.
how do you like to begin? So if a woman is listening right now and she's like, this is me, I don't even know where to begin, but this is me to a T. If she came to you, where do you usually start for her?
Well, and you know what? I'll give you not to confuse people, but we've got some overfunctioners here. So they can take two actions. They could take a
Okay.
super trait quiz and they can download my pleasure practice guide.
Okay. Perfect.
The first step is healing our relationship to pleasure for
Mm,
us. And we
mm,
can start doing it in little micro ways,
mhm.
like sitting and enjoying our coffee
Yes.
or tea, taking a 5-minute walk and just being unavailable, but listening to the birds sing, looking at the wind blowing in the trees, feeling this, like
Yes.
being present, like little things that we can add into our day that I call pleasure anchors
Mhm,
to get us out of that survival brain,
mhm.
get our frontal lobe turned back on, our decision making, our pleasure centers turned back on. But that is where we start. That's step one. And I know it sounds very like, okay,
No,
really?
you're right in alignment with what I teach and preach too. So yes. Yes, I love
Because, and I think we want it to be these big, complex things, but it's when I was in my abusive, extractive relationship, it was my skincare routine and taking my supplements. Like, I was so lost and I did not know who I was that
Mhm,
I just needed to get back to those two things. So no
mhm.
matter what in the morning and no matter what in the evening, and I had a baby at the time, and I was going to take my supplements, and
Yeah.
those things, did not matter what was going on. Those were happening for me because it's not only about the self-care or the pleasure practice, it's that we have to be able to center our pleasure no
Mm.
matter what is going on around us. That's the initial skill that we need. And I look at it as like it's a muscle we have to train when we have
Yeah.
super traits.
Centering our pleasure. I like that. Well, because it makes me think, and I do encourage, and I've written articles on, I call it like doses of joy, right? Like it's the same principle of like, how do we allow it to and receive the pleasure that is around us? And it doesn't need to be these big things, like these little things. But it's true that if a woman doesn't know how to be present enough to sip her coffee, how in the world can she be in her body in the moment to allow any kind of physical sexual pleasure to emerge? Like
Yeah.
you,
Aside from just like turning off your brain and getting through it,
right,
performing, we
right,
can't. It's not because she's broken, right?
right.
It's just biology, physiology. And I think we do so much blaming women But it's just like, no, this is just how your body works. Of course. Of course. If you can't feel even the micro doses of
Yes.
pleasure and joy, you're not going to be present during sex. And
Yeah.
nor should you be expected to be.
Right.
So, what are the conditions of safety? What are the conditions that you need for those pleasure centers to be on? And that's how you create pleasure-centered relationships. But you need to put yours on the map.
Mm-hmm. I feel like we could seriously record a whole separate
A whole other
on
episode.
how even what you just said to create like the safety, because I think that's what I love, the step, like the small step of like we can practice, because I think for most women they can wrap their heads around like, okay, what can I do? What are these small little things like your skincare and your supplements, right? That I can start this week that I literally can commit to. It's not rocket science. It's literally finding, I will say, like, you might not feel like you have a lot of time in your schedule, and these are busy women, but you're probably going to drink some coffee or something anyway. So how are you going to be present while you're drinking it? And this is so beautiful, but there's all the other pieces that come after, which is what I would love to have another conversation about, because to go from there, which is very doable, and I love that as a starting point for women, to like living a full, embodied, like joy-filled life where you can feel their magnetism and their vitality. Like it's a totally different energy, right?
It's exactly.
And they want that, and they want that so bad. But I think it's like they want to jump to that feeling, but they're not fully realizing yet how all of these things in their life are eroding their sense of safety and security. Because pleasure comes from a place of feeling like safe.
Yeah,
And
our pleasure centers can only be on if we are in a regulated nervous system state. If we feel like, and it could be safety from just having so much to do, that this mountain, this weight of your to-do list is never lifted, right? So your pleasure centers are off.
Yes. I love this. Okay, well, we may need to chat.
Yeah, we can do a part 2 on how do we get to there.
Yes.
But I'm telling you, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, and I have tried to hack this for myself and my clients, but we got to take the baby steps before we get that outcome.
There's not a special naturopathic like.
No, I wish there was some sort of a hack or a peptide that we could.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Jordin, this has been such a delightful, like, I feel like, again, we're stepping into the waters. At the end of every interview, I love to ask a woman like yourself, clearly high achieving, gifted woman, what is your definition of flourishing, since we are on the Power to Flourish podcast? For yourself. Sometimes I say in this season to make it really specific. Like, what does flourishing look like for you in this season of life?
This season, and that was the first thing that came up, but in my mind, but it was very specific. But in this season is being able to do what I want, when I want, with the people I love.
That's beautiful. That's flourishing and freedom. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that was the word that came to my mind, was free. Yeah.
I love
Feeling free.
I love it. And you mentioned a few times where people can find you, but where would you love people to check out these resources? We'll put links for those, the checklists or the quiz, but where do you like to hang out? Where can people come learn more about you?
My podcast, the Pleasure Principles podcast, is a great place for deepening on all these conversations that we just had. And my Substack, the Pleasure Path, is where you can get more handouts and resources. So those 2 places.
I love that. Thank you again for joining me today. It's been a great conversation. I know many women are happy they tuned in.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, was that not a great conversation? I am so grateful for the work that Dr. Jordin Wiggins is doing in the world. And if you would love to learn more about her, I do highly encourage you to check out her resources. The links will be in the show notes. And thank you for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a beautiful week ahead. And as always, keep flourishing. Thank you for listening to the Power to Flourish podcast. I hope today's conversation left you feeling more seen, more supported, and more deeply connected to yourself. And if this episode resonated, would you take a moment to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with a friend? It's one of the best ways to help this work reach the women who need it most. You'll find show notes, links, and resources from today's episode at powertoflourish.com. And now just a quick reminder, this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It's not therapy, medical advice, or a substitute for professional support. And listening doesn't make me your therapist or doctor, though if you're looking for a coach, you know where to find me. All right, beautiful one, that's it for now. Until next time, trust yourself, honor your gifts, and keep flourishing.